I woke up one Saturday to what looked like a full-blown county fair camped out on my land. 400 tents, RVs, and fire pits sprawled across my 150-acre pasture like some kind of neon invasion. There, in the middle of it all, stood Linda, the HOA president, perched on a folding chair with a megaphone, preaching about her community unity campout, like she was Moses parting the Red Sea. Problem was, I didn't recall sending out any invites, and I sure as hell didn't give anyone permission to turn my grazing fields into a tailgate party. My name's Tom, and I've been running this ranch just outside Willow Creek, Texas, since my dad passed it down to me, same as his dad did for him. It's not much, just enough grass and cattle to keep me honest, a life carved out of dirt and sweat. But to Linda and her HOA cronies in the shiny new subdivision next door, my barbed wire fences and lumbering Angus bulls were a personal insult to their cookie-cutter lawns and yoga retreats. Linda had been gunning for me ever since she rolled into town 3 years ago, clipboard in hand, her son Visor practically screaming, "I'm in charge." She'd send me letters about my unkempt vegetation, nag about the smell of my herd, even try to fine me for not joining her HOA, like my family's deed for 1947 was just a suggestion. I ignored her at first, thought she'd burn herself out, but then she started calling my pasture community green space and roping it into her grand plans, like my land was her personal playground. The trouble really kicked off when I found a glossy flyer in my mailbox, advertising this big campout on the Greenbelt. I knew exactly what they meant me pasture. I drove down to their clubhouse, a fancy little building with fake ivy on the walls, and laid my survey map on Linda's desk. "This here's my land, Linda," I said, pointing at the boundary line, clear as day. "You can't just claim it." She didn't even look up from her clipboard, just smirked and said, "Tom, the community needs this. Don't be so territorial." Territorial? Lady, this is my home, my livelihood, my dad's legacy. I walked out, my boots heavy on their polished floor, knowing she wasn't going to stop unless I made her. By Friday, the invasion had begun. SUVs and campers lined up along my fence, blocking my gravel drive like I was the guest. Kids were ripping down my no trespassing signs, tossing them into fire pits while their parents cracked beers and set up grills. I leaned out my truck window and told one of Linda's neon-vested security guys, some smug kid named Chad, "You're standing on my property, son." He laughed, said, "Relax, man. It's just a community event." That's when I saw Linda, megaphone blaring, declaring victory over outdated property lines. The crowd cheered like she'd liberated them. I didn't honk, didn't yell. I just sat there, watching my 20 bulls grazing quietly at the far end of the field, and a slow grin crept across my face. If Linda wanted a spectacle, I'd give her one she'd never forget. See, my dad always said, "Don't fight a fool with words that'll drag you down to their level. Let the land speak for you." So I went home, poured a coffee, and pulled out my binder survey maps, deeds, county livestock laws, all the paperwork my dad taught me to keep tighter than a drum. I typed up a notice of livestock movement, filed it with the sheriff, the county clerk, even animal control. It said plain and simple. Saturday at noon, I'd be moving my bulls across the pasture for a routine rotation. Perfectly legal, perfectly routine. Anyone on my land was on their own. I taped a copy to Linda's SUV for good measure, right next to her HOA president bumper sticker. I called up my buddy Mike, a lawyer who owed me for hauling his Jeep out of a ditch last spring. He looked at my photos, torn fences, fire pits dug into my grass, trash piling U-pan whistled. "Tom, this is a slam dunk. Trespass, nuisance, property damage." He got her dead to rights. I nodded, but I wasn't just banking on the law. I was banking on my bulls, 20 head of 2,000-pound Angus, black as coal, calm as a Sunday morning unless you spook him. They weren't wild, just steady, trained to follow my whistle and feed bucket. But to a crowd of city folks, they'd look like a stampede straight out of a Western. Saturday morning, the campout was in full swing music blaring, kids screaming, diesel fumes choking the air. I set up cones along the cattle trail, tied bright orange ribbons to mark the path, and called in 2 wranglers, brothers named Luke and Ben, who'd worked my herd for years. We checked the bulls, topped off their water, shook the feed buckets to get them ready. By 11 a.m., whispers were spreading through the camp. Some guy in flip-flops asked, "Heard the ranchers moving cows or something. That a problem?" Linda, strutting with her megaphone, laughed it off. "He's bluffing. He wouldn't dare." Oh, I dared. At noon, I swung open the north gate. The lead bull, a big fella named Samson, snorted once, his horns catching the sun. Luke whistled, and the herd started moving, slow and steady, kicking up dust like a lazy storm. The campers froze. A mom dropped her Esmore stick. A drone buzzed overhead, catching every second. Then the screams started. "Bulls! Run!" Tents collapsed as folks tripped over coolers and chairs. A food truck peeled out, spilling tacos across the grass. One bull nudged a fancy golf cart crunch. The thing wailed like a wounded animal. Linda climbed onto her folding chair, megaphone shaking. "Stay calm. He's just scaring us." But nobody listened. They were too busy sprinting for their SUVs. The sheriff rolled up, same deputy from the day before. He took one look at my bulls, plodding along like they were on a Sunday stroll, and grinned. "Hell, Tom, that's one way to clear a crowd." Linda ran over, screaming, "Arrest him! He's endangering us." The deputy held up my livestock notice. "Ma'am, this was filed yesterday. He's within his rights. You're the ones trespassing." Her face went redder than a chili pepper, but the crowd was already gone, leaving a mess of trash, ruts, and broken dreams. I thought that'd be the end of it, but Linda wasn't one to quit. By Monday, a process server dropped an injunction in my mailbox claims of reckless endangerment and emotional distress. She even said I'd abused my bulls by forcing them into a hostile environment. I nearly choked on my coffee laughing. Mike and I got to work, piling up evidence. Trail cam footage of campers cutting my fences, drone shots of their trash heaps, county reports calling their bonfires a fire hazard. When the county inspectors showed up fire marshal, health agent, the works they didn't bat an eye at my bulls. They handed out citations to the HOA like candy for illegal dumping, unpermitted events, you name it. In court, Linda's lawyers tried to paint me as some rogue cowboy terrorizing families. They played shaky phone videos of my bulls like it was Jurassic Park. Mike stood up, calm as ever, and laid out the truth. My deed, my notices, my footage, even tax liens I'd quietly bought on HOA parcels when they missed payments last year. The judge didn't blink. He tossed Linda's injunction, ordered the HOA to pay for my fences, my grass, my legal fees, plus county fines. Oh, and those tax liens? They gave me leverage over their precious greenbelt. Linda's jaw hit the floor. Her neighbors started whispering about voting her out right there in the courtroom. By the next month, Linda was gone resigned after a screaming match at an HOA meeting where folks waved their sky-high dues notices and cursed her name. The new president, a quiet guy named Jim, showed up at my gate with a handshake. "We're done fighting, Tom. Let's fix this." Crews cleared the trash. Neighbors helped hammer new fence posts. Even kids from the subdivision pitched in, learning how to stretch wire while my bulls watched, chewing cud like they approved. One evening, I walked the fence line as the sun sank low, painting the hills gold. The air was clean, no generators, no megaphones, just crickets and the soft snorts of my herd. For the first time in years, the land felt whole again. Linda? Word is she sold her house and moved to a condo in Austin, probably bossing around a new HOA. Me, I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The land had spoken, just like my dad said it would. All it took was patience, a stack of receipts, and 20 bulls to remind folks where the line was. Boundaries ain't just lines on a map theory what keep us grounded, what keep us free. So, tell me in the comments, where you watching from, and what's your take? Ever had to stand your ground against someone like Linda? Or am I just a crazy rancher who let his bulls do the talking?